Hello, and welcome to Concordia University's World of Pharmacy, where we talk about all things pharmacy related. This is episode 3 of our series on the pharmacists who invented soft drinks, and here we'll talk about Dr. Pepper. Now, Dr. Pepper used to be a largely regional drink, mostly in the southern United States. Lately, it's been growing in popularity, recently becoming the number 2 soft drink in the U.S. Dr. Pepper was invented in 1885 by a pharmacist named Charles Alderton. His story is practically legendary by this point, and it's worth retelling here. Alderton ran his own flavor extract business in Texas, but it wasn't as successful as he had hoped, and eventually he took a job as a pharmacist in the Old Corner drugstore in Waco, Texas. The drugstore was owned by another pharmacist named Wade Morrison, and the two of them seemed to have had a good work relationship. I looked for a good photo of Morrison, but frankly, there's very little about Morrison that I could find. Not a whole lot of facts about how he got started in Waco, where he went to school, anything like that. He's kind of a mystery. As many drugstores did back then, the soda fountain was an important component of the business model, and people would come in for flavored soda water. Alderton figured he could increase sales if he offered a flavor that no one else had. Everyone else had things like lemon and vanilla. He wanted something different. So he spent time mixing up various concoctions of the flavors that he had available and probably even invented a few. We're not really sure. At some point, he arrived at the current formula, and Morrison thought it was terrific. So they offered it at the fountain, and it was a big hit. They hadn't given it a name, and customers took to calling it a Waco. Now, I don't know about you, but in 1885 in Waco, Texas, I can definitely see a cowboy swaggering up to the soda counter and saying, "Shoot me a Waco," because apparently that's what they said. You can't get more Texas than that. Alderton and Morrison started producing the Dr. Pepper syrup in bulk in the basement of the store, and sales increased quite nicely. They named it Dr. Pepper, but no one knows exactly how they came up with the name. There are a few people in the U.S. named Dr. Pepper at the time, and while many people have sought to draw a link between either Alderton or Morrison and a Dr. Pepper so they could make a nice link there and say, oh, it was a tribute to this guy that I knew, well, no, there really isn't. There's no believable link. I tend to think they just wanted to throw the word pep into their name, and they said, well, we could call it Dr. Pep. I know, how about Dr. Pepper? That's what I think. Anyway, maybe one of the ingredients is a chili pepper. Maybe that's why they called it that. Waco's in Texas, and they're very big on chili peppers, so maybe it's, I don't know. And no one knows for sure. The next step, though, was to bottle their new product, and they formed a partnership with a man named Robert Lazenby, who owned a ginger ale company nearby and could bottle the Dr. Pepper. Interestingly, at this point, Charles Alderton had very little interest in mass commercialization of his drink, and he gave up the rights to the product. Morrison and Lazenby ran the company and made it into a regional favorite. They made a lot of money on that. Well, okay, what makes it popular? The taste. The taste is unique. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but for right now, there are a few attempts that others have made to duplicate it, or at least make a close contender, but no one has succeeded. According to the company, there are 23 ingredients in the mixture, but who can be sure even about that? The side of the bottle mentions natural and artificial flavors, but good luck trying to figure out what those individual ingredients are. The recipe is proprietary, much like the Coca-Cola recipe is proprietary. You're not going to find that out. I'm sure chemists have analyzed it already, and they've figured out pretty much what's in it, but figuring out exactly what's in there and the concentrations of those things is not so easy to do. One thing is for sure, it is not a cola drink. For a while, this was in dispute, and it hurt Dr. Pepper. It was difficult to get a bottler anywhere in the U.S. because the contracts with Coke and Pepsi typically had a clause saying that the bottlers could not take business from any other cola producer. Coke bottlers could not bottle Pepsi, and vice versa. It's the same thing with regional drinks like RC Colas. You couldn't bottle that if you were bottling either Coke or Pepsi. It was exclusive. Dr. Pepper got caught up in the struggle, but the company insisted that Dr. Pepper was not a cola at all. And by the 1970s, remember, 1970s is almost 100 years after it was invented. By the 1970s, they finally obtained some contracts with bottlers in northern states and in the western states that allowed them to increase their sales area. Their rationale was that it was a pepper drink. Quote unquote, a pepper drink. What does this mean exactly? I don't think anyone knows. Does Dr. Pepper have any pepper in it? Maybe. I don't know. I can't taste any pepper flavor. In a practical sense, giving it a non-cola identity allowed the brand to grow enormously, along with some clever advertising gimmicks. I think we've all seen some of the commercials on TV, some of which are actually very clever. Anyway, whatever the answer is, what a pepper drink is, it's probably just a marketing gimmick when you get right down to it, but it worked for them. The soft drink is now huge in the United States. It's now owned by the huge Keurig Dr. Pepper company, which we've heard of before in this series. Dr. Pepper, the drink, is undoubtedly their biggest seller. Well, what lessons can we take away from this story? First, the inventor simply gave away his rights to the product. Even if you're not motivated by money, you should maintain some financial interest in your invention. I'll bet Dr. Alderton's descendants wish he had done that. Second, even in a crowded soft drink field, you can make a superior product. I'm not saying that Dr. Pepper is my favorite, not by a long shot, but I like it, and there's a place for it, apparently a great big place. Third, recognizing why your product is not succeeding will lead you to a solution to the problem. They finally got bottlers for Dr. Pepper by insisting that theirs was not a cola drink, but a pepper drink. And as I say, that may have just been a marketing ploy. I think it was an honest one because it's really not a cola drink at all. It just looks like one. And it worked. They figured out that was the problem. That's why we're not getting any bottlers. Let's get right to it. This is the taste test part of our video today. So let's talk about the bottle first. Here we have your typical bottle of Dr. Pepper. As you can see there, it's got the classic color to it. It's some sort of, I don't know what kind of color that is. I don't know what to call it. I don't like that color, but you know, it's distinctive. Dr. Pepper has decided to go with it. I don't think they're going to change it, certainly because I don't happen to like the color. But, you know, it's what's inside the bottle that counts, right? So let's find out what's inside the bottle. Kind of looking forward to this. It's my little treat for the day. There we go. That is Dr. Pepper. Give it a little taste first. It's always described as kind of a fruity sort of taste. It is. I'll get back to that. Here's the thing about it. It looks like a cola drink. Take a look at that color. That looks exactly like a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi-Cola. But of course, it's not a cola drink. It is a pepper drink, whatever that means. We talked about that in the video portion of this talk. It is a very distinct flavor, though. Now, here's my own analysis of taste. Take it for what it's worth. Maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. If you're talking about a solid food, say a banana, all right, or a piece of fried chicken, whatever, when you put it in your mouth, you taste that taste. You taste it right away. It's distinctive. You know exactly what you're talking about. Very often, though, with liquid foods, like a nice Dr. Pepper here, you don't really taste it when it's in your mouth. You taste it after you swallow, and you get the aftertaste. That's the part that you taste with a lot of the liquids that are out there. Now, there's certain exceptions. If there's a very powerful taste to it to begin with, you'll taste it right away. Orange juice is like that. Verner's ginger ale was like that. That had a very distinctive, very almost overpowering ginger taste to it. So you caught that right away. It's also very highly carbonated, and the bubbles, I think, wake things up. But anyway, most of your other soft drinks that are out there, frankly, in my opinion, you're tasting the aftertaste. And so if we take another little drink of it here, which is why I'm here today. Yeah, when I have it in my mouth, and I just hold it there, it's nice and cold. It's certainly wet. It's kind of refreshing. You taste a little bit, but you really get that aftertaste. The aftertaste on Dr. Pepper, I think, is the thing that really makes it a hit. It's distinctive and so more powerful than your typical cola drinks. And we're about to get into the cola drinks. Next time we'll talk about Coca-Cola, so I'll have a lot to say about that. But the fact of the aftertaste, I think, is the thing that makes it popular today with a certain type of people that really like that sort of flavor. What is the flavor on this thing? As I mentioned, it's a very fruity drink. What types of fruits? Well, very strong flavor of cherry that's in there. Sort of like a maraschino cherry. If you've ever taken some maraschino cherry juice, in a little maraschino cherry jar, and you've added it to like a Coke or a Pepsi and tried that, you mix it around and you try that, it tastes a lot more like a Dr. Pepper than it used to. And that's not saying that that's all it is, not by a long shot. What I am saying, though, is that that cherry flavor has to be a big part of Dr. Pepper. What else is in there? I'd say definitely a little bit of vanilla. I can taste that. There's let's say a note of vanilla. And now I'm starting to sound like a wine connoisseur here. Just a note of the vanilla. Maybe also a little lemon. Maybe I'm imagining that. But I think the lemon was used there to tone down the very strong cherry taste on this. Does this taste, by the way, like a cherry Coke? A little bit too, but cherry Coke is certainly a Coke sort of product. It's not a pepper. Is there pepper in there? Not that I can detect. There's not like ground pepper. There's not like peppers, that you'd find in a chili. I don't find that anywhere. I'm not so sure that it's in there. Maybe there's a little. After all, this was made in Texas. Texas is very big on peppers. So maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. Are there 23 different ingredients in Dr. Pepper? Beats me. I have no idea. So who knows? All I can tell you is that it's practically impossible to actually duplicate Dr. Pepper. I know there's been a few out there that have given it a try. I would say they don't even come close. If you want a really unique taste, it's Dr. Pepper.